Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I want to do an energy update for the month of September. Things have been really interesting since the Lionsgate. The energy's been kind of muddy, confusing. I haven't posted anything in about a week just because I haven't really pieced anything together. It's like there's nuggets, but there was no continuity until the last 24 hours. Things started to really kind of shape up. So I want to start with just like a quick little recap of the energy of the last couple of months since the eclipse. So with the eclipse, that for me felt like a really distinct before and after kind of energy, right? Like something completed the day of the eclipse and then we moved into a new space, and it felt like we were in almost like a holding period between the eclipse and mid-July. And then come mid-July, things started turning left again. It was like a sharp left. And especially around the Lions Gate, all of a sudden it started to feel like everything was an inch to the left, like everything was slightly off. And that sense of weirdness, strangeness, heaviness, exhaustion, muddiness, can I trust my intuition, that kind of energy has been very present. And um, not really seeing any type of clear path forward, and having intuition pulling you one way, but then also like contradictory intuition pulling you in another way, where it's like, I want to move towards this, but then another part of me feels like that's a red flag, right? It's like that's been a lot of the energy recently, at least not just from my own experience, but looking at other private readings that I'm doing for people and personal experiences. It's like that seems like the theme. So the visual that I have been getting in the last couple of weeks has been like, if you can imagine the Wheel of Fortune turning, that it's like it finally turned to just where it needed to be. And it's like in that moment, it's like somebody put a stick in the wheel and kind of jammed it into position, almost as if things have been like slowed down so that like a perfect moment or alignment won't be missed, or it can be calibrated. Like I keep seeing it more so in slow-mo. I know I was using like the stick analogy, but it feels more fluid than that. But it's like trying to get things to line up. And the best way that I can describe it, I drew a little diagram. If you see all of these rings, it's like, imagine each of those is a different timeline, right? And it's like we're waiting for some sort of convergence, some sort of alignment where it's like they all kind of line up. And it's like they've been doing this Vesica Pisces type of thing for a while, coming into focus. But now I feel like it's this, right? Like it's not a perfect circle by any means, but it's like it's finally like almost focusing. But again, it's like things have slowed down. I keep seeing that scene from The Matrix, the most recent Matrix movie, the fourth one, where the analyst has like the ability to slow down the Matrix and move things if he needs to. And I don't see it in like like a nefarious way, like something bad is happening. I see it as, aligning something for us, right? Almost as if it's course correction. I keep getting the words course correction. So I have a bunch of cards on the table. I want to jump into those. And the other thing that I want to say before I jump into the cards, well, first I'll show you I have Phoenix reversed on the back of the deck, on the bottom of the deck, excuse me. So Phoenix reversed is the overall energy here. And, the story of the Phoenix is being born from the fire, right? It's like you go through that trial by fire initiation and you come out the other side as the Phoenix. Phoenix reversed, going back into the fire, kind of reminds me of like Khaleesi from the Game of Thrones, how she's kind of impervious to fire because she's of the fire. She's like made of the fire. She was the mother of dragons or whatever, but that was like one of the things about her, is like she could walk into a burning structure and be okay. And so in terms of Phoenix Reverse, the reason why I'm saying that is because when everything happened on the eclipse and it felt like that distinct before and after, the visual that I got, and I'm not sure if I ever shared this, but here I am sharing it now, was something like this. So let's say that this one triangle here, it represents the matrix, the game, the holy mountain, so to speak, right? And the objective of the game is to climb the mountain and make it to the summit and do whatever it is you need to do, right? Now, the reason why I have these two here with the plus and the minus is because I feel like the game that we were playing before the eclipse was almost like a mirror version of the real thing. Like a simulation of the simulation, if that even makes sense, where it looks like the game, but it's not actually, like, it's designed to beat you, if that makes sense. You can't beat the game. It was a game that was designed to beat you, where it's like you could climb the holy mountain all you want, think that you're getting to the apex, and as soon as you get there, boom, right back to square one. And I feel like, raise your hand if you've experienced that 1,001 times in this matrix, especially before the eclipse, right? Where it's like you think things are coming to fruition and it's like plot twist, start at square one, do not pass go, right? As of the eclipse, I think we made it to this like little circle here, right? Which is like this space between the mirror where these two kind of touch. And we've since kind of moved into the real deal. But for a while there, at least while we were in the holding period between the eclipse and July, I feel like we were kind of in a no man's land, maybe even going back to like more like this Vesica Pisces here, where, you know, if you want to use the term like angelic and demonic, it's like the angelics were present, but so were the demonics. It's like the full spectrum, the entire motley crew of potential things out there showed up at the same time, right? It's like all timelines present in the same arena, if you want to call it that, but with like no jurisdiction, right? Because it's a no man's land. It's like a nothing timeline, if that even makes sense. But now I feel like we're moving again, right? And if we're moving through the real deal, it's like the real deal is a mirror version of all the BS that we had been through before the eclipse. So as we go wherever it is that we're supposed to go, the way it almost looks like going backwards through what we just went through, but we're actually going through something new, if that makes sense. I know it's so convoluted. Welcome to my channel. But that's effectively what I'm getting, especially in terms of Phoenix reversed. And the reason why I'm saying that is because another big theme that I'm seeing is what looks like old timelines coming back, like timelines that you particularly might not want to go back to, but it's not the old timeline. It just has like aesthetic similarities, if that makes sense, where it's like maybe the figures look or act the same, or they drive the same car, they have the same name, or something like that. That again, it's like aesthetic, it's cosmetic. But my guess, my hypothesis around all of this is that it's like if we did incarnate with any particular type of purpose, right? Like we were seeking something, like a bloodhound or whatever, then we would have been looking for something in particular, right? So let's say I was programmed to look for a blue square, right? And something in the mirror realm, the shadow realm, the distorted, false version of things, knew that I was looking for a blue square. How they knew, I don't know, but they knew. So blue squares show up and it turns out to be bad news. So that screws up the intuition, right? Because it's like, well, I know I'm programmed to look for the blue square, but then every time I went towards it in the past, it would blow up in my face, right? So that's what I think is kind of happening now, where it's like these things that look like other things that one part of your intuition really wants to move towards strongly because you're programmed to move towards it, but another part is like, ooh, is that a red flag because it reminds me of the past? That's what I kind of think is happening right now. I know that that's jumbled. I'm sorry if it was not articulate. I hope it was. But I still have so many cards to get through. And that's only the beginning. But again, this is where I think we are right now, where it's like I feel like within the last couple of days, it seems like things are starting to come into focus, where it's like everything was blurry, so to speak, in especially since Lionsgate, but I guess leading up to that. But things are starting to come into focus in terms of, especially in terms of like I'm seeing a theme of people really coming to terms with their own identity, right? Especially after playing Goldilocks for so long, because we all do it. We all have so many different jobs, and you become a different character for each job and each friend group and each level and blah, 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 blah. But in all of that cosplay that we do, it's like you find yourself, right? Because it's like the common denominator in all of that would be you. And it kind of helps you effectively like distill who you are, right? So it's like I see a lot of that happening, and a lot of ruby slippers kind of moments too, where it's like you realize that you had the shoes on your feet the whole time kind of energy. That's another theme that's kind of coming into that whole identity thing, right? Because it's like I feel like most of us, at least, what we're really seeking is not exactly something material or monetary, right? It's like we're looking for more, energetic things. We want, whether it be community, peace, love, those kinds of words, right? But in the same respect, it's like a lot of people I think are in an energy right now, and I am going to jump into the cards. I know I'm 10 minutes into this, I'm sorry, but in an energy right now, a lot of people might find themselves in what I call like a frozen world card energy, where it's like the world card, she's jumping through that laurel wreath kind of between timelines, right? Between the end of one story and the beginning of another story. And I think that there's a lot of energy of kind of being stuck in the middle, where it's like just not seeing a path forward. I have the Two of Swords on the table, which the Two of Swords is basically being at the crossroads without a map. So it's like the energy, I think it's, I think a lot of people are thinking that they've stalled their own energy, but I don't think that it's that. I think that it's this alignment that I'm talking about, this like oscillation of the timelines that are trying to do the Vesica Pisces thing until they become a perfect circle. It's like it's something outside of us that we're waiting for. But just like the analogy of the Matrix movie where they would pause reality or slow it down, nobody in the reality was aware of the fact that it had been paused or slowed down. I don't know what they would have experienced, but my guess, my hypothesis is maybe it would be something like we feel like we've been experiencing for the last couple of weeks or months or whatever, where it's like this weird time dilation, or it's kind of a loop, or it's glitchy, or whatever it may be. So without further ado, let's jump into the actual cards on the table. The first card on the table is the B card. And honestly, I've said like a lot of this in what I was saying, but there's more to come. So the B card as the first card on the table, this is what I'm seeing is like as everything oscillates and lines up, it's finally coming into focus. But like a bee, it's vibrating into focus. And I'm thinking of like the frame rate of reality. If you've ever seen like videos of a hummingbird that are taken at a perfect frame rate that gives you the illusion that the hummingbird is just kind of floating, right? It's something like that. Maybe that's not the best way to describe it, but that's what I'm seeing with the bee at least. It's like something finally coming into focus, and coming into focus because of what I was saying about having that better sense of identity through everything that we've experienced collectively or you've experienced individually. It's like finally having something to program into the GPS, even if it's something simple and it's not the full idea, but it's like the keywords are starting to drop in, right? The nuggets are starting to come in, and the puzzle pieces are starting to make an image, right? It's basically like that kind of energy. And the next card on the table is the King of Pentacles. And I'm seeing this as you with your antennas basically receiving this information, whatever it is that's vibrating in, right? This is kind of being like, I guess you could say telepathically blasted. I don't think that that's the right word, but it's like you're picking up the signal, right? This is being like airdropped to you via the cosmic Wi-Fi, and the King of Pentacles is you kind of picking up that signal and seeing and feeling and experiencing and embodying whatever this new energy is. So this is kind of where I feel like we are right now, where it's like it's starting to click, it's starting to crystallize, you're starting to see this purpose and this understanding and yada yada. And again, King of Pentacles is the material realm, right? So again, it's like it's starting to materialize and come into focus. And then the next cards on the table after the King of Pentacles is the hummingbird. So it's like the bee and the hummingbird, right? These are those two magical creatures that literally defy reality. And I feel like it's like the bee was talking to me about this thing trying to vibrate into reality, but it's like waiting for a frequency match, right? And that's why it's one of the reasons why I think the energy has been so muddy in the last couple of days, because it's almost like listening to three different radio stations at once, or not exactly being on the exact frequency, right? It needs to be 100.3, but you're on 100.4 or something, and and with the bee, it's like as it comes into focus, when it finally does come into focus, it's this hummingbird, which what this was talking to me about is like, bees are relatively common, all things considered. It's like you're very likely to see a bee if you go out for a walk, but like seeing a hummingbird in and of itself feels like a significant experience, right? Like if you're out and about and you see a hummingbird, you stop, because that's not an everyday thing. And that's what I feel like is happening with this King of Pentacles, it's like you're on this timeline that's starting to crystallize, right? Things are starting to take shape. These new characters and scenarios and things are coming in, but you're wondering what the heck is going on. Am I making a bad move here? Where should I be going? Or you're pulled to move in a particular direction, or you felt the pull to do things around the time of the eclipse, thinking that it would have this particular domino effect, but maybe that didn't play out right now. So it's like you're in that energy of like, what is this? And then it's like boom, it turns into the hummingbird energy. And what I mean by that is that the bee would be something that you're looking at as common or mundane or everyday. And then all of a sudden, that thing that seems relatively common or insignificant, all of a sudden the significance of it is like crystal clear and in your face. And it's coming in with this Son of Swords, Page of, is it the page? No, excuse me, Knight of Swords energy, right? And I'm seeing this as basically the same thing, that it's like as soon as the significance of it becomes apparent, as soon as the timeline snaps into place, right? It's like it's almost there, but it's a little messy. But it's like as soon as it becomes a perfect timeline, a perfect circle, and snaps into place, and it's like once the frame rate lines up, because that's really what the hummingbird is talking to me about. It's like as soon as the frame rate is perfect, that you can actually see what this bee is, it comes in with this significant amount of information, which is the Knight of Swords energy. I'm just seeing this as like a tremendous amount of information coming through. And the way that it looks on my table, this Knight of Swords is heading directly for this Eight of Pentacles, heading directly for the spider that's at the center of this web. So I'm like, should I jump into that, or should I just... Yeah, so the spider, the two things that I have here, I have the snake and the spider. I'm sorry, this is not the spider, it's the Eight of Pentacles. The snake and the Eight of Pentacles. So the snake, to me, this is what a map of the construct, a map of the matrix would look like, that flower of life type of pattern. I think that was like, there was a download that I had maybe in 2016 or 2017, something like that, where that was effectively what the timeline looked like. And that's kind of what I'm seeing, or it's exactly what I'm seeing, honestly, with the bee and the King of Pentacles, and this timeline coming into focus and like vibrating into focus, is that it's like the map has finally been finished, right? I think, quite frankly, I have a feeling like if you believe in Dolores Cannon's volunteers or anything like that concept, it's like my feeling about all of that is that one of the primary jobs was to map this place out, because nobody knew what the heck was going on in here. It was just so effed up that they couldn't tell who's who in the zoo, right? Like code wise, it's like maybe you couldn't discern an active player from an NPC. Maybe it looked the same, or good from bad. I mean, I don't know how else you want to qualify it, but that's my theory, at least, right? And that actually, I think, it was one of the plots of the Matrix movie. I think it was the plot of the most recent Matrix movie. It was that they couldn't find them in the Matrix because they looked like NPCs, or they had done something to the code of Neo and Trinity to make them look like NPCs and like alter their image or whatever it may be. So that being said, that's been mapped out. That's been figured out. And the Mishigots, if you want to call it, all of the kerfufflery would have been this Eight of Pentacles, this web, right? Because the Eight of Pentacles in general talks to me about a loop, but the web in this particular context, it's like the web that would get people stuck, right? Like when I was talking about the concept of the Holy Mountain in the original Matrix and the false mirror image, it's like you would get caught in the web. You would try to ascend and it would just pull you back out. And you would try to go up and it would just pull you down. It was designed to do that, right? It was like a closed loop that had no intention of letting you ascend, right? But again, it's like whatever is coming in, it's like the thing that's at the center of this web, right, is, how would you say it? It's like the cornerstone of all of the other programs. It's like all we see are the symptoms, but we can't actually see the cause, right? And we've been digging, looking for the cause. And it's like all it needs is a little bit of awareness, but we don't know exactly where to look, right? It's buried under all of these other things. And with the Son of Swords coming in here, because it's the owl, right? The owl has the ability to see in the dark, right? I would imagine from great distances, but I'm not exactly sure. But we know that it can see very tiny, almost insignificant things from a far distance away in absolute pitch blackness, right? And that's where proverbially this program would hide, right? If it lived somewhere. And what's so interesting is beneath these two cards that look like the map and the web and all of that is this card that's the mouse card. And when the mouse first came out, I was thinking to myself, what is the mouse doing there? Because it just doesn't seem like I would expect the panther, I would expect the alligator, something ferocious, give me Beelzebub, whatever. But it's just this little mouse, right? And that honestly makes so much sense because it's seemingly insignificant. And think about like if you have a mouse in your house, you might not know for a while. It could be there for a minute and you have no idea that that mouse is there. And then all of a sudden, one day, you realize that your entire pantry is wrecked, right? And then once you see that, you realize there's droppings everywhere and blah, 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 blah. And it's like once you see it, it's everywhere. But then also think about the story of like the plague of Europe, whether or not it's true. They tell us that, one little mouse came over from wherever and brought the plague, wiped out a third of the continent, and brought upon, 1,000 years of dark ages or whatever. Significant little thing. You see the symptoms of it, right? The effect, but you don't see the cause because it's just this tiny little thing. But it's like whatever it is that is the cause, this insignificant little thing that again, it's almost like it's hidden in the walls of the matrix, if you want to use, the allegory of the mouse, right? That it's like hiding in a space that you can't see, but it's like causing this everything that we've experienced, right? Causing this, literally. But the mouse, it has an energy of something that doesn't actually have any defenses. That it's like ultimately at the end of the day, it is a completely powerless energy or entity in and of itself. It's caused great destruction, yes, no denying that. But the mouse versus the owl, right? If I was going to place odds, I would place them on the owl. And what's coming next in the spread after that comes into the awareness is the energy of the nightingale reversed. And what's interesting about that, so I had to read the book on the nightingale, and it was talking all about the energy of poets. So like poets, bards, poems in general, yada yada, but like storytelling, song, but that kind of like back in the day ancient storytelling, right? They would write these epic songs and it's almost like they would sing them into existence, I wonder. And the reason why this is really interesting is because recently I was somewhere on the internet and I saw one of those, like the Illuminati word map kind of things where it'll say like, center of the map, it'll say like Vatican and then CIA, Illuminati, yada yada. And I've seen all of these word maps where at the very top of the thing there's this word Pindar, Pindar. I'm like, what the heck is Pindar? I've never heard. So I'm Googling, ChatGPT, yada yada, nothing. The only thing that comes up is this famous poet, and it was a poet named Pindar, and he would have been one of the original bards, and he wrote a lot of these stories, and yada yada yada, and he's considered the greatest, and this, that, and the third. And it made me wonder if that's the mouse, right? This seemingly insignificant, very little glory. If I, man on the street interview, gun to your head, who is Pindar? Nobody knows, right? But wrote the foundational stories that became the other stories, that became the other stories, that became the other stories. And this is a theme that's come up many, many times where it's the idea or the concept that there's only 36 different dramatic situations or everything exists within the parameters of the archetypes, right? So all of the ancient mythologies, right, the stories of the gods and whatever, that it's like everything that plays out here in this world comes from one of those stories, right? As if those stories are the baseline algorithm that everything else is allowed to draw from. Almost like the same idea as AI, right? Where it's like AI doesn't come up with anything new, it just mines everything that's out there and pieces it together differently. That's what I think we experience, where it's like there's this baseline fixed book of stories, right? 36 stories, and they get scrambled a couple different ways, just like, playing cards, you get dealt your hand. And you go on from there. And I guess it would be the same idea as astrology, right? Because all of those stories correspond to astrology, and astrology is literally what I just said, rearranging the 36 different parts and blah, blah, blah. So with the Nightingale reversed, I feel like that story is being unsung. And that's also going back to this Phoenix reverse, right? Going back into the fire, going now, but now impervious to it, right? And it's like not really even going back into the fire, because I don't think we're going into this shadowy realm. I do think that we're now actually ascending the real deal McNeil Holy Mountain. But that being said, I think it's like expect changes, right? I mean, I can say I myself have made profound changes in my values and things like that in the last couple of years because of all of the different things that I've experienced. So it makes sense to me to think that, like, it's like all I know is that I don't know everything, and I'm probably wrong about most things. So I'm totally open to the idea that most of my beliefs might be untrue or incomplete or something like that. And that's kind of what this Nightingale reverse energy is giving me, in terms of like how to unsing the song, if that makes sense, right? Because that was like an epiphany that I had. I think it might have been in the first video that I posted about passing through the DMZ, or the cookies are crucial. Those were the titles of the videos. But it was this idea of, if you could end one story completely and start a new story completely, where it's not another chapter, not a sequel, but it's like two succinct different stories. And the thought exercise was like, how would you bridge that jump in your mind? And finally I realized that it would be, for most of us here within this matrix at least, it's like you get to that last couple of pages of the old story, and in the last couple of pages you realize that you weren't actually the victim of everything. You were the only one that had any creative power whatsoever, right? You were maybe tricked into creating things, I'll give you that for sure. We've all been there. But in the same respect, it's like technically we always held the power, right? It's the ruby slippers kind of thing, right? Where it's like, even if we manifested against ourselves by accident or because we were tricked into doing it, whatever, it's like we were still the manifester. And once you realize that you hold the power, you hold the keys, that's it, game over, right? Because you can just flip the whole script. And the context of everything changes too, right? So that being said, that was the epiphany that I had like 2 years ago. And that's kind of what this feels like right now, in terms of like a similar kind of a thought form, or something, that some sort of information that comes in that, again, like changes the context of the past and therefore changes the past. Almost like a Mandela effect, but not exactly, but kind of like, almost as if you can change the context of the past so much that it actually does change at least the now moment. But maybe not. I don't want to get too lost in that, because I don't even know what I'm saying there. But the next two cards in the sequence, I have the Son of Cups and the Daughter of Cups. And they were looking like this. And this was coming after the Father of Pentacles and the Hummingbird. I'll show those again. It's basically like a continuation of this kind of meetup, right? Where I feel like the Father of Pentacles, the King of Pentacles here, is you kind of receiving clarity about this timeline, right? Like it's the antenna picking it up as the timeline comes into focus. And as the timeline comes into focus, right, it turns into something way more significant than you realized. And with the Page and Knight of Cups, it's like it eventually reveals itself as a kindred spirit, I guess. So I feel like this would be saying not any, but like that there could be characters in your story right now that are just kind of coming into focus, that you're on the fence about in terms of what kind of role they play, but then something gets illuminated, or there's some degree of clarity that hits the situation where you realize that there's a kindred spirit either with the person or the opportunity or the circumstance. I think you know what I'm saying. And what's interesting is right after the mouse, I have the dolphin. And that's really kind of picking up on that kindred spirit energy where it's like once like the foundational program that all of the other things that are built on top of, which is the mouse, once that's seen and brought into awareness, and once you realize how small it is in comparison to you, it's almost like this energy of it's kind of like the energy of like Stella got her groove back, where it's suddenly realizing again, like it doesn't, it's not disappointing, right? If anything, it's thrilling to find out. But again, and I feel like the mouse could be different for different people, right? It's like there could be one proverbial big mouse for everybody, but then on the personal level, it's like I know, at least for myself personally, in the last couple of weeks or months, there's been so many things that have come up in terms of memories that are like day one memories, right? From when you're 3, 4, 5, 6 years old, whatever. And you realize how these seemingly insignificant things can play out and become these other programs and thought forms and whatever in the future. So it's like once that scene that's cleared, it's like this dolphin energy activates. It's like I feel like you activate as this dolphin. You can see this energy is kind of blasting out from the dolphin and kind of, yeah, like blasting. The next card in the sequence is the Eight of Cups reversed. It's like I feel like it's blasting through that wall that is the Eight of Cups, because typically the Eight of Cups is about wanting to walk away from something, wanting to walk into the new, but it's like the energy is it's blocked, right? It's like you have to go into the unknown. It's almost like you're blindfolded. You don't know what you're walking into, and you wonder, it's like, is it the better the devil I know? Should I stay here? It's like the energy that I was talking about in the beginning in terms of intuition issues and things like that. But it's like this, not only is this dolphin energy kind of blasting through that, but it was giving me the kindred spirit theme, because when dolphins make this noise in the wild, they're not just doing it to entertain themselves, they're doing it to communicate, and typically across vast distances, right? I'm not sure how far they can, but I'm sure pretty far. And we know how like intelligent they are, and they're communicating, right? So that's effectively what I'm seeing, where it's almost like it's like maybe pulling in your tribe. I guess that would be the best way to describe it, because again, with Sun and Page of Cups, it does feel like at least just knowing that you're with your people, right? If you don't know it already, because you might have had this experience within the last couple of weeks, absolutely. But finally having that moment where you realize like you are with your people, and when you really think about your manifestation list of like what it is that you went through the fire for in the first place, that you did actually achieve those things, right? That you do have that around you. But regardless, it's like if you're in the other camp where you're not so certain if you're finding that around you right now, it's like I feel like something soon is going to make itself known in that regard. Because again, it's like I have this Eight of Cups reversed, which was being shattered by honestly the energy of joy, where again it's like kind of that energy of remembering who you are, and but truly profoundly remembering who you are in like a very simple way, right? Because quite frankly, it's like if you ask most people, it's like what do you really want, right? What do you want in terms of your purpose or yada yada? It's like we all just want to live a peaceful life where we have our garden and we pick our fruits, and you have your friends over on Friday night or whatever, and they live down the block, and it's like we don't really want much more than that, right? And I feel like it's almost like we overcomplicate it, because we think like, well, maybe I have to do something more grandiose than that, or what do I really want to create or contribute. And it's like, maybe you do just want to like live a peaceful life and take it as it goes and be spontaneous and not just commit to one craft for the rest of forever or whatever it may be. But regardless, it's like that Eight of Cups, whatever it does that does discourage you from moving forward, that shatters. And on the other side of it is the Two of Swords reversed, which is coming underneath these two swans that are meeting, right? The kindred spirits, birds of a feather. But it's like this timeline merger, right? That looks a lot like this bee energy, but it's like finally coming into focus. And Two of Swords reversed, right? So Two of Swords is sitting at the crossroads without a map, having no idea where to go. Two of Swords reversed would be knowing where to go, actually having something to plug into the GPS, right? And yeah, because I guess the best way to say whatever this is, whether it's people, places, or things, it's something that you can finally hold on to, that you can plug into the GPS. Because it's like I know I want this, right? Because cups, especially Knight of Cups, Page of Cups, that talks to me about purpose, like that aspect of identity, right? Like what am I working for? What am I working towards, etc. It's like that, I think, is the thing that's coming into focus, at least for September, right? And we'll see. I guess if it's timeless, take it as it resonates, but that's what I've got. If you'd like a private reading for yourself, all that info's in the description box. I would love to do that. We can meet via Zoom. Other than that, just thank you for watching this through the whole thing. I really appreciate that. And I will see you soon. Bye, y'all.